I can quite confidently confirm that this is the game that you've been waiting for. Like, I think Remedy fans are going to lose their minds at this game.
Hello and welcome to the What Culture Gaming channel. I am not Scott Tilford, I am Adam Strawn from the main channel. Cheeky plug, come and check us out on there. You and I have got some cool stuff going on. But today, we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about, I'm so excited for this, Alan Wake 2. And I'm here to talk all about Alan Wake with the mother of Resident Evil herself, Cy White. How are you doing, Cy?
I'm really good. I'm also very excited to talk about Alan Wake 2. So excited that I wish we could swear on this channel. I'm flipping excited to talk about Alan Wake 2.
Absolutely.
And to talk about it with you as well, because you're a big fan of Remedy's games, that's right?
Oh my gosh, yes. So I'm excited to go back from because we've had a lot of Alan Wake stuff, like little teasers, right? Where we've had the remastered version of Alan Wake that released, and then we had the Control DLC as well, obviously very Alan Wake there. So I'm really, really excited to hear all of the thoughts and everything about this game.
So I'm going to say up front that this is not a full review. I've only had about 5 hours or so with the game, so this is quite literally like a first impressions thing. So if you're worried about spoilers at all, there isn't really going to be any. I don't have much in the way of spoilers to give you if I wanted to. But it's good to hear you say that, because I think I can quite confidently confirm that this is the game that you've been waiting for. I think Remedy fans are going to lose their minds at this game. Not only is this finally a return for Alan Wake, as you say, after all the teasers that we've had, and 13 years since the original game, but also just if you're a fan of the Remedy universe, this is a moment. This feels like a big moment. It's made with so much joy and so much love, and we're going to get into the horror aspect of Alan Wake 2, obviously. But despite it being a horror game, I haven't laughed with joy this much at a game in so long. There are so many little parts where I was like, that's so good. Little nods here and there that I don't want to spoil it, because part of the joy is experiencing it. But people have got some idea that certain characters are coming back and stuff like that, and they really haven't been shy out the gate of referencing other games and confirming that yes, Control and Alan Wake are in the same universe, and so on and so forth. There's so much of that you're like, this is a real moment for Remedy.
Everything you've just said there is like Christmas Day for me. I am this is exactly what I wanted from the game. I'm a massive Control fan. I adore that game. And obviously, the last DLC, really heavily leans into Alan Wake, right? I mean, it's basically called the Alan Wake DLC, let's be real. But I want to ask you, Cy, just kind of going in. So obviously, the way the first Alan Wake ends, right? So obviously Alan's trapped underneath the lake, right? And all of that. And I really want to know, just if you can talk about the transition going from that obviously into Alan Wake 2, because obviously we've got Saga, this new character as well. Is she our way into this world? Because obviously Alan is very much still trapped within that kind of dark realm. So I really want to know about that transition going into the game, if you can talk a little bit about that.
Absolutely. Meta is the name of the game with this throughout on so many levels, but it directly picks up, 13 years later with the mysterious disappearance and stuff like that. It's certainly something that is explored in the early parts of the game. Not the directly early parts of the game, actually, in the way that any good sort of mystery detective story should, and this is absolutely what that is when it comes to Saga, because she's an FBI agent and that kind of thing. Yeah. There is way more questions than answers at the beginning. It actually, I don't want to, again, it's one of those things that I don't want to spoil because I want people to experience. It kicks off with a really interesting answer to a question that you might not be expecting from Alan Wake 1. But then after that, it's okay, here are a bunch more questions, which is really, really cool. It introduces a bunch of new elements. It introduces who Saga is. And then the wheels really start to turn once you, connect back to the point with that Alan Wake story, and things start to blossom out from there. But that first hour, I know they talked about survival horror, didn't they?
Oh yeah, that's what I'm excited for, because I just want to I obviously say as well, I haven't played any of this game at all, so I am a huge fanboy, just wanting to absorb all of the knowledge from Cy basically in this conversation. But Cy and I are huge survival horror nerds. We talk about Resident Evil all the time, and although like Remedy have always had like little glimpses of like survival horror in some of their games. Obviously, Alan Wake's definitely got it. Control's definitely got it right. There's little moments of it where you think, oh wow, that's a nice little contained little bit of survival horror, a little bit of horror there in their games. But to take all of that and bring it to the forefront, and basically that being this game, I'm really interested, especially for someone that loves survival horror, on your thoughts of how they tackle that and handle that in this game.
So from a tone perspective, first of all, this is a whole other level in terms of horror for Remedy. They've not done this level, and that the first hour of the game that introduces, I jumped out of my skin several times, and I was quite happy that I had a social event that evening, which meant I had to put down the game after the first couple of hours because my heart was pounding away, and it left you with that great feeling that you want out of a horror game, is that I want to carry on playing, but I also don't because I'm terrified. It does chill out a little bit from there when you get control of the characters a little bit more. But yes, tonally, they've knocked it right out of the park. And when it comes to survival horror, and you mentioned Resident Evil, I don't think it's a surprise to say that this plays most similarly to Resident Evil 2, the 2019 remake. I mean, it's a horror game of modern day standards. They're all pretty much going that way. That is to say that it's very comfortable to play. We've got the resource management a little bit, ammo is light, which you would expect, because from what I remember, and I haven't played the original Alan Wake since it actually came out, I remember that being an aspect there. Obviously, you have to struggle with the amount of batteries you've got for your torch and stuff like that. So that was always an aspect, but that's certainly in here. And you've got inventory management a little bit. I haven't got to the point where I've really had to think about it, but it's like, here's how much space you've got in your inventory, and in the safe rooms there is a nice little nod to Thomas Zane and his shoebox, which is where you keep all your extra items as well, for later, which was clever. But yes, this leans much more into horror than Remedy have ever done before.
Okay, that's awesome. And I'm sure that the development team as well, like, actually reference, like, the likes of Resident Evil 2, Resident Evil 4 as well. Like, they've definitely taken inspiration from these games. And you know what? You can see that, like, the camera angle, it's, going behind the character like that straight away.
It's exactly the same, yeah.
Literally,
and there's nothing
we
wrong
haven't.
With that.
No, not at all. In fact, like, if anything, it's more immersive. Like, it's bringing you into this world as well, which is always one of the strengths of that type of camera angle within Resident Evil. And to bring that to Alan Wake as well, I am so excited for that.
Yeah.
Oh my god! As well, the obviously the inventory system as well. That's really interesting to hear that, because I didn't actually realize that, how similar it is there as well. But again, it's like almost one of the cornerstones of that. You kind of have it with like Silent Hill and other stuff like that as well, where it's like you're managing that within this crazy world of, oh my god, everything's happening. And I guess probably the tone as well. Like Silent Hill, I'm guessing, must be quite a nice reference within. Silent Hill's tone for me is like God tier. That for me is incredible survival horror. And I'm guessing the tone of this game, I'm assuming, must lean kind of more towards Silent Hill with that. Am I right in saying that?
Yes, for several reasons, actually. I know we're here to talk about Alan Wake 2, but a part of my brain while playing this was like, if these upcoming Silent Hill games don't do as well, people will champion this game even more, because it fits in a similar pocket. And actually, one of the great new mechanics of it, several of the new mechanics are about transforming the world around you, which obviously was kind of touched on in the Control DLC a little bit, that Alan Wake can kind of write in a way that alters reality. And that's certainly part of it in several ways, which does remind me of Silent Hill, but also other Remedy games, in the same way that Quantum Break, when you could mess with reality by messing with time, you can use the clicker to take the light from somewhere and take it somewhere else, which will suddenly, the first example of this is you're looking to get on a subway, and you find the subway sign, but the entrance is gone, and there's a flickering light. If you go find a light and put it in that lamp, suddenly the subway entrance is there, and that kind of thing. It's really clever. And then, yes, Alan can then get to a scene and watch something play out, and he's like, well, I've got an interesting character. What happens if I put this character in this scene? And then you get to see what happened when this character walked through the collapsed tunnel, and it alters the environment depending on when they did that. So you'll have like a train with a bunch of gas canisters next to it, and then what if these characters came through that loved fire? Oh, they burnt the train out, now you can walk through it. Stuff like that is really exciting. It's a little bit to get your head around to begin with, and I do admit I got a little bit lost in a couple of places. I think the level design is a bit, your mileage may vary, because Alan Wake's walking around New York City. That's not so bad. Saga's largely walking around Bright Falls in the forest, and it's very easy to get lost in a dark forest, which obviously inspires some of its own horror. But if you get lost for too long, there can be some frustration with it. And when we get back to talking about management of the inventory, that doesn't become a problem so much as you have to go inside of Saga's sort of own mind space, like Alan has, and she's got this big case study wall where she's putting up all the evidence.
I love that.
It's a great idea. It'll be interesting for me to see how people fare with it when the game releases, because it does feel a little bit like it stops and starts to flow early on. So I'm not sure how I feel about it. I haven't played the full game, how it fits into the grand scope, but there have been a few moments where it's like, I wish I didn't have to sit here and reiterate all this information that I've just had. But now that the wheels are really turned, I think maybe we're going to pull back on that, and it's going to let me be a bit more free with that kind of thing. But we'll see. It's certainly something that it's a bit of a teething issue early on.
Okay, and hopefully it'll be a mechanic that they're kind of like, introing and saying this is the thing that you can do, and then kind of let you access that as and when it's supposed to impose in it.
It feels like it's going that way, so fingers crossed that that's the sort of final version of it for most of the runtime.
Cool. Just before I ask you about the combat changes, which I'm really, really excited to hear about, just overall, obviously, Alan Wake is famed for having like this narrative perspective, literally, with Alan kind of narrating the entire game all the way through that. And I want to know kind of like, because obviously we've got this new character as well, Saga, who is like within Bright Falls, and I kind of want to know about that narrative perspective in terms of how they handle that, whether it's at the forefront of the game, whether like, because obviously with the Control DLC, I loved how meta that was. It was almost like Alan was almost kind of like reaching out to Jessie, and she was the one that kind of came into like his kind of world to find out what happened to him there. And I kind of want to know the difference with these two characters and that narrative perspective from Alan that we're used to. How heavily does that play in this game?
It's a very similar thing where it's kind of like the reaching out aspect is reflected in here as well, but because Saga's kind of like his brand new character, they've got a complete fresh slate to start with. So it fits nicely together, her being an FBI agent that's kind of been called onto the scene to investigate a mysterious murder that then she's like interested in because it's potentially all happening because of a cult, and it just kind of snowballs from there. But what's really interesting is that her aspect of walking around Washington and stuff like that, Bright Falls and the forest, it harkens back to the Alan Wake inspiration of Twin Peaks. She has the Twin Peaksy part of it. She gets to go in a diner and gets told very mysterious, contradictory things about her past by the people that live here. They're like, oh yeah, we remember you, and that this tragic thing happened to you that in her version of reality didn't happen. I haven't really understood what's going on there. I'm still in the thick of the mystery of it. But that is, as I said early on, that is part of it. It's like it's throwing up a whole bunch of questions about who she is and how she fits into this story. And in fact, why she has this strange ability to go to this sort of mind place and profile people in an interesting way and come to... She's got an interesting intuition, which seems almost supernatural as well.
Oh, I'm so intrigued. Like,
it's so good.
Honestly, I can't stop smiling whenever you talk about it because I just need to play this game now. Like, it needs to be in my veins. Like, I need it. But of course, like, it sounds like it's leaning into the greatest influences that Alan Wake had, right? Which is like Twin Peaks, Lost, all of these mystery type things. It's
clearly made with so much love and so much knowing. This is why I wanted to lead with, like, if you're a Remedy fan, then this game is absolutely for you. I think this is going to be a real moment for them moving forward. I've not remotely finished the game yet, but I'm so interested to see where they go from here. And to see how this lands among people. I don't know if it will be... I think it will be one of those games because it's been such a crazy year for games. It will definitely be on the sort of periphery of Game of the Year conversation from what I've experienced so far. It's also unfortunate because it's releasing quite late in the year as well. It's competing with so many big names, but I think that it's a game that it's going to be kind of regarded as one of those sleeper hit sort of things where I'm so excited to see the review scores.
Same, to be honest, big same. I mean, like, obviously Alan Wake had it's been 13 years, right? The following that Alan Wake's generated as well over the time as it's been out, it's just been incredible. Like, the fan base, for me, feels like it's grown and grown and grown. And especially when they've leaned more into that with, like, the DLC with Control, obviously the remastered version of Alan Wake, it shows that the fan base is there ready to sink into this, just like you and I. But I want to ask you very briefly, the last thing is about the combat changes. So obviously, as we alluded to earlier, we have the different combat, we have the different camera angle obviously now behind. And, you know, the original was so focused on that, shine the torch, burn the darkness off the enemy, then shoot the enemy. You had like, you know, the flare gun and everything like that, which was such a cool way to handle, like, how do you combat against darkness, which was really interesting. Then obviously we have two characters here, which I'm guessing have two different approaches to combat. So I just want to ask you kind of briefly, Si, how does that work out in the game?
That is unfortunately so far where you're wrong. It is fairly
Ooh.
similar, or I should say basically exactly the same. Alan has a revolver, and Saga so far in my playthrough has managed to acquire a couple of guns, but it is basically the same as the original game, which might well be, you know, if it isn't broke, don't fix it kind of thing. I'm interested to see if they add any more to it. There is upgrades available for weapons and for Alan's general being, I guess, that he can find along the way, defensive stuff like that, which obviously adds a little bit of a wrinkle of player customization, but it is largely exactly how you remember it, but obviously, as we talked about, framed from the Resident Evil 2 remake perspective. It's nice to be able to go back to doing that again, but they haven't changed it too much.
Okay, I'm a big fan of the combat system from the original. Like the slow down camera when you fire the flare gun, and like when you land that shot perfectly, man. Like I eat that stuff up. So I'm excited for that with like a HD sheen on it, I guess. But yeah, I'm super pumped to hear that. So those are Si's initial thoughts on Alan Wake 2. I am so excited to jump into this and hear more, and obviously play it very soon. But do let us know down in the comments. Are you excited for Alan Wake 2? What are your initial thoughts going into this? Please do let us know. But for now, I've been Adam Strawn, this has been Si White, and we will catch you next time. Bye.